The neon sign said vacancy, even though half the letters were dead. It blinked like a slow heartbeat, washing the wet asphalt in sickly pink and blue. A row of doors faced the lot, each with a faded number, each with a small window that looked like it had learned not to expect morning. Mara had promised herself she wouldn't stop, not in towns like this, not at motels like this. But the gas gauge had dropped to a thin red needle, and the rain had thickened into something that felt personal, like the sky was trying to make her turn around. She pulled in anyway. The Harbor Lights Motel sat on the edge of nowhere, pinned between a pine forest and a two-lane highway. Beyond the lot, the woods leaned closer than they should. Mara cut the engine and listened. The rain ticked against her windshield. Somewhere, a sign buzzed. Somewhere else, a dog barked once and stopped. She got out and hurried under the office awning. The doorbell over the office door chimed as she stepped inside. The office was small and warm, smelling faintly of stale coffee and lemon cleaner. A glass bowl of peppermints sat on the counter like an apology. Behind the counter, a man sat on a stool, reading a paperback so worn the cover had peeled off. He looked up with the slow patience of someone who'd been interrupted by time itself. He was late 50s, maybe older, with pale lashes and a mustache that had given up on symmetry. A name tag pinned to his shirt read, Clyde. "Evening," he said, as if the word had been practiced. "Hi," Mara replied, rubbing rain from her jacket's sleeve. "Do you have a room?" Clyde didn't glance at the glowing vacancy sign outside. He glanced, instead, at Mara's face like he was checking it against a list. "Got one left," he said. "Room 12. He slid a key across the counter. Not a plastic card. A real metal key with a heavy fob that clinked dully when it moved. Mara hesitated. Just one left. Clyde's mouth twitched. "Depends on how you count." Mara tried to smile like she didn't understand. "How much?" "Cash preferred." She handed him 2 bills and signed the register. The pen was chained to the counter. The register book was thick with names written in different hands. Some lines were smudged, like the ink had been dragged by wet fingers. As Mara wrote Maraellis, Clyde's gaze flicked to the highway, then to the woods, then back to her. "You travel in alone?" he asked. "Yes." Clyde nodded once, as if that settled something. "Breakfast is not really a thing. Ice machine's broken. Don't go into the woods." Mara blinked. "I wasn't planning on it." He leaned closer, lowering his voice, not for secrecy but for weight. "I mean it. Don't go into the woods. Folks wander in there and they come out different." "Different how?" Clyde straightened, tired. He slid her a thin brochure with local attractions that looked like it had been printed in the year 2000 and regretted ever since. "Room 12, he repeated. "Knock if you need anything, but not after midnight." Mara stared at him. "Is that a joke?" Clyde didn't blink. "No." Outside, the rain had eased into a mist. The lot's puddles reflected the motel's neon like bruises. Mara found room 12 at the far end of the row, away from the office, away from the road, closer to the woods that loomed behind the building like a dark shoulder. The key turned with resistance, as if the lock didn't like being used. The room smelled of old fabric and something metallic beneath it, faint but there. The bedspread was a patterned brown that tried hard to hide stains. The TV was the kind with a built-in VCR slot. A picture hung above the bed, a lighthouse against a pale sea, its beam painted too bright, too clean. Mara set her bag down and locked the door behind her. She checked the window. The curtains were already drawn, but when she pulled them back a few inches, she saw the woods right there. Thick pines, black trunks, rain-glossed needles. The tree line began only a handful of steps past the back of the motel. Too close. She let the curtains fall shut. Mara was supposed to be in Brightwater by morning for a job interview she couldn't afford to blow. She had spent the last 6 months in a string of temporary rooms and borrowed couches, moving like a ghost herself. This interview was a chance to stop moving, a chance to start again. She took a shower, the water sputtering hot, then cold, then hot again, as if the pipes were arguing. When she got out, she noticed the bathroom mirror had a thin crack in the corner, like a vein. She told herself she was being sensitive. She was tired. She had driven for 11 hours. She ate a protein bar, then opened her laptop, hoping the motel Wi-Fi would be decent enough to check her email. The signal bar showed one line, then none, then one again. The browser page loaded halfway and froze. Mara sighed and closed the laptop. The silence in the room was thick, almost padded. The highway noise was distant, muffled by rain and trees. The buzzing from outside seeped through the walls. She turned on the TV for background noise. It clicked on with a static hiss. Channels rolled from snow to darkness to a blurry talk show with no sound. She changed channels. Snow, darkness, snow. And then, for a half second, an image. A grainy view of the motel parking lot, seen from above like a security camera. The angle was wrong, though. Too high, too far back, as if the camera was hung from the trees. Then the TV snapped back to snow. Mara frowned. She tried to get the image again, switching channels back and forth. Nothing. She turned the TV off. The clock on the nightstand glowed 11:40. Mara climbed into bed. The mattress sank deeper on one side, as if someone had slept there for years and left their shape behind. She lay on her back and listened to the rain. Somewhere a door opened and closed. Footsteps, a muffled cough, another door. So she wasn't the only guest. That should have been comforting. It was. At 12, someone knocked on her door. 3 slow knocks, a pause, then one more softer like a question. Mara sat up, heart already too loud. Hello. No answer. She slid out of bed, bare feet on cold carpet, and approached the door. The peephole was cloudy, scratched like someone had rubbed it with sandpaper. She leaned in anyway. The hallway was empty. The air outside looked wrong, not in a way that made sense. Like the fluorescent light above had dimmed, but only around the edges, leaving the center bright. Like the corners of her vision were being pressed in. She stepped back. Another knock, this time from the wall behind her. Not the door. The wall. Mara turned slowly. The wallpaper was a faded beige. The lighthouse picture above the bed hung straight, its frame dusty. Knock, knock. From inside the wall. Mara's throat tightened. Then the sound stopped, like someone had put a hand over a mouth. She grabbed her phone and stared at the screen. No service. Of course. She opened her contacts anyway, thumb hovering over 911 like the act of wanting help might summon it. The clock read 12. She tried to laugh at herself. Walls make noises, pipes knock, buildings settle. But the knocking had been deliberate. She crossed the room and checked the bathroom. Empty. The shower curtain hung still. The cracked mirror reflected her face too sharply, her eyes too wide. Mara locked the bathroom door, though she didn't know why, and returned to the bed, keeping the lamp on. At 12:20, she heard it again. Not knocking. Whispering. It came from the air vent near the ceiling, a thin hiss threaded with syllables she couldn't quite catch. Mara sat up, staring at the vent like it might open its mouth. The whispering continued, soft and urgent, like someone asking for help through a wall. She moved closer, stepping onto the chair beneath it. The vent was old, painted over so many times the slats had rounded edges. The whispering stopped. Then something breathed out of the vent. A cold exhale that smelled like damp soil and pennies. Mara jerked back, nearly falling. She caught herself on the wall, fingers pressing into wallpaper that felt slightly wet. Her skin crawled. She grabbed her jacket, her keys, and her bag in a rush. She would sit in her car if she had to. She would drive to the next town, even if she had to push the car on fumes. She swung the door open and nearly ran into a man standing there. He was tall and thin, wearing a rain-darkened hoodie. His face was pale in the motel light, eyes sunken. He held a plastic cup like it was a lifeline. "Sorry," he said quickly, stepping back. "Didn't mean to scare you." Mara's heart hammered. "Jesus, what are you doing?" He pointed vaguely toward the office. Ice machine's broken, so Clyde gave me tap water. I thought I heard. His voice faltered. You knew here. Mara tightened her grip on her bag strap. Yes. The man's eyes flicked past her shoulder into the room like he expected to see someone else behind her. Room 12, he said. Not asking. How do you? Only room left, he murmured. He always says that. Mara stared at him. Who are you? Evan, he said. Room 9. Mara glanced down the row of doors. It was quiet, too quiet. Did you knock on my door? Evan shook his head quickly, almost offended. No, I don't knock on anyone's door. He swallowed. That's a bad idea here. Mara felt the hair on her arms rise. Why? Evan's eyes darted toward the woods, then the office, then back to her. Because, he said softly, sometimes something knocks back. Mara forced air into her lungs. Okay, you're messing with me. Evan's face didn't change. I wish I was. A door farther down the row creaked open. Both of them turned. An older woman stood in the doorway of room 6, wearing a floral nightgown and a cardigan. Her hair was pinned in rollers as if she'd expected a normal night. Her eyes were sharp, alert. She looked at Mara, and Evan like she was taking inventory. New girl, she said. It wasn't a greeting. Mara straightened. Yes. The woman stepped out into the walkway, holding a cigarette that wasn't lit. Name, Lottie, she said. If you're smart, you'll keep that door locked and you'll stay away from the back windows. Mara stared. What is this, some kind of prank? Lottie barked a short laugh. Honey, I'm 62 years old, I don't prank. Evan shifted uncomfortably. Lottie, don't start. Don't start, Lottie snapped. Tell her, or let her learn the hard way like the rest. Mara looked from one to the other. Learn what? Lottie's gaze slid toward room 11, 2 doors down from Mara. Its curtain was slightly parted. No light inside, just darkness. Someone died here, Lottie said. Mara's mouth went dry. What? Evan's eyes lowered. Lottie. Lottie ignored him. Not last week, not last month, tonight. Mara's stomach dropped. What are you talking about? Lottie raised her chin toward room 11. He's in there. Mara followed her gaze. The door to room 11 looked the same as hers. Same peeling paint, same cheap handle, same deadbolt. She couldn't see anything unusual. You're saying, Mara began, you're saying there's a body in there. Evan exhaled like he'd been holding breath for days. We heard something earlier, he said quietly. A scream, then a thud. Mara's brain tried to reject it. Why didn't you call the police? No service, Evan said, holding up his phone. Landline in the office is down. Clyde says it'll be fixed tomorrow. Mara looked toward the office. The window glowed dimly. Clyde's silhouette moved behind the curtain like a shadow passing in front of a lamp. Mara's skin prickled. So go knock on Clyde's door. Lottie's face hardened. Clyde doesn't have a door you can knock on. Mara frowned. He has to live somewhere. Lottie leaned in slightly, voice dropping. Not here, not the way we do. Mara felt something cold settle in her chest. She glanced again at room 11. Did you see him? She asked. Evan shook his head. No, we didn't go in. Because the last time someone went into a room after midnight, Lottie said, they didn't come out. Mara stared. That's insane. Is it? Lottie asked, and her eyes looked tired in a way that went beyond sleep. Mara's hands clenched. She couldn't stay here. She shouldn't stay here. But the rain was still coming down and her gas was low and her phone was dead and... A sound cut through her thoughts. A soft scrape. Like something heavy being dragged across carpet. It came from inside room 11. All 3 of them froze. The scrape stopped. Then a faint thump, as if something had bumped the door from the inside. Mara's throat tightened. Someone could be alive in there. Evan's eyes widened. Or something else is moving around. Lottie swallowed, the motion sharp. We don't go in, she said, like she was repeating a rule she'd been forced to memorize. Mara took one step toward room 11 anyway. Lottie caught her arm with surprising strength. "Don't," she hissed. Mara pulled back. "If there's someone hurt." Lottie's grip tightened. "If there's someone hurt, Clyde will handle it." Mara stared at her. "Clyde." Lottie released her slowly. "Clyde has arrangements." Mara's gaze slid back to the office. Clyde was watching from behind the curtain, not moving, just watching like he'd always been there. Evan whispered, "He knows when you look at him." Mara's stomach churned. "Okay," she said, forcing steadiness. "We need to do something rational. We need light. We need proof. We need..." The motel lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then the entire row went dark. The neon sign outside buzzed, sputtered, then died with a wet pop. For a moment, the only light came from the faint glow of Mara's phone screen. In the sudden darkness, the woods behind the motel felt closer. Mara could sense the tree line like a presence pressing against her back. Then, from inside room 11, a voice spoke. Not loud. Not a scream. A calm, careful voice, like someone speaking through a door to avoid waking a sleeping child. "Can you open it?" Mara's breath caught. The voice was male. It sounded normal, human. It sounded like someone trying to keep panic out of their words. Evan whispered, "No." Lottie's eyes were wide, reflecting phone light. Her lips trembled. The voice continued, gentle. "I'm hurt, please." Mara's pulse roared. "If someone is hurt, we should help." Evan grabbed her wrist. His hand was cold, damp. "It's not him," he whispered. "That's not the guy from earlier." Mara stared at him. "How do you know?" Evan's jaw clenched. "Because the guy from earlier had a southern accent, that voice doesn't." Mara's skin prickled. "People can." The voice cut in, almost impatient now. "Open the door." The words were the same, but the tone changed slightly, like something underneath was losing patience with pretending. Lottie whispered, "Don't answer it, don't talk to it." Mara's mouth was dry. She realized she'd been holding her breath. "Why?" Mara whispered back. Lottie swallowed. "Because it learns." The darkness felt thicker, like it had weight. Mara became aware of other sounds, small ones she hadn't noticed before. A faint tapping along the roofline. A soft rustle from the woods, not like wind, but like movement. The voice from room 11 spoke again, now with a strange familiarity. "Mara." Her blood turned to ice. Nobody here should know her name. She had signed the register, yes, but she hadn't said it out loud. Evan hadn't introduced her to Lottie by name. Clyde had looked at her face and called her Evening. "Mara," the voice repeated with a smile in it. "I can hear you breathing." Evan's grip tightened painfully. "We're going back inside," he whispered. Mara wanted to move. Her legs didn't obey right away. The doorknob on room 11 turned slowly. It didn't open, but it turned, testing the lock like a hand trying to remember how fingers work. Mara's voice came out small. "How?" The voice answered her question as if it had heard her thought. "Clyde keeps the keys," it said, almost conversational. "But he lets me borrow them sometimes." Lottie made a choking sound. Then the motel light snapped back on, harsh and flickering. The neon sign outside sputtered and returned, blinking its broken promise. Room 11 went silent. No dragging, no voice, no turning knob. Mara's lungs finally filled with air like she'd been underwater. Evan's eyes were glassy. "We have to leave," he said. "Right now." Mara looked at the lot. Rain, fog, her car sitting there like a small, fragile animal. "Gas," she whispered. Lottie's face was pale. "You don't need gas," she said. "You need daylight." Mara backed toward her room, keys shaking in her hand. She got the door open and slipped inside, slamming it shut and locking it so fast her fingers fumbled. Evan and Lottie stood outside for a moment longer, staring at room 11 like it might breathe. Then they hurried back to their rooms. Mara leaned against her door, chest heaving. Her mind raced through explanations. Someone playing a joke, a local kid, a drug addict, a man hiding inside. But none of those explanations fit her name spoken in that voice. None of them fit the way the darkness had felt like it had intent. She forced herself to be practical. She checked her phone, still no service. She tried the motel phone on the nightstand. It had no dial tone. She remembered Clyde's words, knock if you need anything, but not after midnight. Mara looked at the clock, 12:30. She stared at the wall behind the bed, the lighthouse painting, the vent, the cracked mirror. Then she heard something that made her stomach drop. A soft, slow knock. Not at her door. From the wall. 3 knocks, a pause, then one more. Mara's whole body went cold. She backed away until her shoulders hit the door. Her eyes darted to the vent. No whispering yet, just silence. Then, from the wall, a faint voice, so quiet she almost thought she imagined it. "Mara," it murmured, "open up." Her hand trembled near the lock, not to open it, never that, but because she couldn't stop her body from moving, as if the sound had hooked into her muscles. She pressed her palm hard against her thigh, grounding herself in pain. "No," she whispered, voice shaking. The voice softened, coaxing. "I can help you." Mara swallowed. "Help me with what?" The voice hesitated. It was the briefest pause, like something searching through a file. "Your interview," it said gently. "Brightwater, you're scared you'll fail." Mara's knees threatened to buckle. That was true. She had been thinking it all day, chewing on the fear like a bitter candy. But she hadn't told anyone. She hadn't written it down. She hadn't even said it out loud to herself. The voice continued, persuasive, almost kind. "You've been running for so long. You're tired. Let someone else carry it." Mara's eyes stung. She didn't know why. Exhaustion, terror, the sudden intimacy of being known. She pressed the heels of her hands against her ears. "Stop." The knocking came again, harder. Knock, knock, knock. The wall seemed to vibrate faintly with each hit. Mara stumbled to the bathroom and slammed the door, locking it. She sat on the tile floor, back against the bathtub, and tried to breathe quietly. Her gaze lifted to the mirror. The crack in the corner had spread. Not much, just a little, like a vein reaching. Mara stared at it, heart pounding. In the mirror, behind her shoulder, the shower curtain moved. Mara spun around. The curtain was still. She looked back at the mirror. This time, the reflection lagged. Not by much, a fraction of a second. Enough to feel wrong. Mara's breath came fast and shallow. She stared, testing it, raising a hand slowly. In the mirror, her hand rose a heartbeat later, like the reflection was thinking about it before agreeing. Her skin prickled. The reflection smiled. Mara didn't. The smile was small, polite, and entirely wrong. In the mirror, her lips moved without her permission. The reflection mouthed words she didn't speak. "Let me in." Mara scrabbled backward, hitting the bathtub. "No," she whispered, voice cracking. Outside the bathroom door, the knocking stopped. Silence pooled in the room like dark water. Then Clyde's voice came from outside, muffled through the wall, calm as a clerk announcing closing time. "Miss Ellis," he called, "you all right in there?" Mara froze. She hadn't heard footsteps. She hadn't heard the office door. She hadn't heard anything approach. "How do you know my?" Her voice died. Of course he knew. The register. Clyde continued, unhurried. "He's restless tonight. Happens when new folks show up. Brings him hope." Mara pressed a hand over her mouth, fighting a sob. "What is happening?" Clyde sighed like the question bored him. "Motel's a kind of harbor," he said. "Storm brings people in, some stay, some leave, some don't manage." Mara's eyes flicked to the mirror again. The reflection's smile had widened. Its eyes seemed too bright, like wet stones. Clyde spoke again. "Don't speak to it. Don't bargain. Don't offer it anything. If you do, it'll take you at your word." Mara swallowed hard. "What does it want?" Clyde paused, as if listening. "To be invited," he said finally. "Always wants an invitation, that's the rule." The reflection in the mirror leaned closer, as if it could hear. Its mouth moved in a silent laugh. Mara's voice shook. "Why can't I just leave?" Clyde's tone turned almost sympathetic. "Because you can't find the highway at night. Not from here." Mara's stomach tightened. She knew the road was right there. She'd driven in. She'd seen it. But she remembered Evan saying the same thing in different words. "We need daylight." Clyde's voice softened. "You keep your door locked. You keep your eyes off the mirrors. You don't answer knocks. Come sunrise, you drive straight and don't look back." Mara squeezed her eyes shut. "And the person in room 11. Clyde was quiet for a moment. Then, very simply, he opened the door. Mara's throat tightened. He invited it in. "Not with words," Clyde said. "Sometimes it's enough to reach for the lock." A coldness spread across Mara's skin, like a fog slipping under a door. In the mirror, the reflection's smile faltered, turning sharp at the edges. Its eyes fixed on Mara with something hungry. Then it spoke, not out loud, but in the movement of its lips, perfectly clear. "You're already talking to me." Mara's blood iced. She realized with horror that she'd asked questions. She'd responded. She'd given it attention, like feeding a stray animal without realizing it had teeth. Clyde's voice came again, quieter, more urgent. "Don't look," he warned. "It uses your eyes like doors." Mara dropped her gaze to the tile, breathing hard. The reflection's voice, now outside the mirror, whispered from somewhere close, behind the bathroom wall in the vent in her own skull. "You're tired," it said warmly. "Just open it, let me take over." Mara clenched her fists until her nails bit skin. She thought of Brightwater, the interview, the chance to stop running. She thought of how lonely she'd been, how heavy the world felt when she carried it alone. And she understood with sudden clarity what this thing hunted. Not bodies. Permission. Surrender. Mara forced herself to speak, careful with every syllable. "I don't invite you," she said, staring at the floor. "You're not welcome." The whispering stopped. For a moment, everything was still. Then the motel room outside the bathroom erupted with the sound of something slamming into the wall. Once, twice, as if angry at being denied. Mara flinched, but held her ground, lips pressed tight. Clyde's voice came faintly, as if from farther away now. "That's good," he murmured. "Hold to that." Outside, another sound joined the chaos. A scream cut short. Evan's scream. Mara's heart lurched. She shot up, forgetting Clyde's warning, forgetting everything except the idea of someone needing help. She unlocked the bathroom door and flung it open. The room was empty. No Clyde, no shadow, no thing. Just her room, lit by the harsh motel light, the bed untouched, the lighthouse picture still straight. Mara ran to the peephole and peered out. The walkway was empty. But Evan's door, room 9, was open. Just a crack, like a mouth about to speak. Mara's throat tightened. She remembered, sometimes it's enough to reach for the lock. She heard something inside Evan's room. A soft voice, careful and coaxing. "Mara," it called from within, using Evan's voice now. "Help me, please, I'm hurt." Mara's hand hovered over her doorknob. Her pulse pounded. Her mind screamed for her to run, to hide, to do anything but step into that hallway. Behind her, the bathroom mirror caught her eye. In the reflection, she stood in the open doorway, one foot already outside. In real life, she hadn't moved. The reflection turned its head and looked directly at her, smiling wide. Then it reached forward, toward the doorknob, faster than Mara's body could. Mara slammed her door shut so hard the frame rattled. She locked it, then locked it again as if doubling the action could reinforce reality. Outside, Evan's voice sobbed softly. "Mara, please." Mara slid down the door and pressed her hands over her ears. She waited. Minutes passed in a blur of breath and fear. At some point, the pleading stopped. At some point, silence returned. And in that silence, Mara heard the faintest sound of all, a key sliding into a lock. Her lock. Mara's eyes snapped open. The doorknob turned slowly, like it was being tested by a patient hand. Clyde had said he kept the keys. Clyde had said it sometimes borrowed them. Mara's chest tightened. She backed away from the door, eyes wide. The lock clicked. Once. Then again. Like someone working through options. Then the voice spoke from the other side of the door. Not Evan's now, not Clyde's. Something that had learned to mimic calm. "You didn't invite me," it said, almost admiring. "But you listened, you looked, you almost opened." Mara's mouth was dry. She couldn't speak. The voice sighed pleasantly. "I'll wait until you're tired enough to forget the difference." The doorknob stilled. Then the footsteps retreated down the walkway, slow and unhurried. Mara sat frozen for a long time. Eventually, she crawled into bed fully dressed, keeping her eyes away from the mirror, away from the lighthouse picture, away from anything that could reflect her. She didn't sleep so much as drift in and out of a shallow, shaking half-dream. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw doors opening. Every time she heard a creak, she thought it was her lock giving in. At some point, the rain stopped. At some point, the air in the room warmed slightly, like night was loosening its grip. Mara opened her eyes to pale light leaking through the curtains. The clock read 6. Morning. She moved carefully, as if sudden motion might crack the world. She packed her bag with shaking hands. She kept her gaze low. She didn't check the mirror. She didn't look at the TV. She didn't open the curtains. She unlocked the door and stepped outside. The motel looked ordinary in daylight. Cheap, run-down, tired. The neon sign had gone dark, powerless in the sun. Birds called from the trees as if nothing had happened. But the air still felt tense, like a room after an argument. Mara walked quickly toward the office. Clyde stood behind the counter, sipping coffee. His paperback lay open, face down. He looked up and nodded once. "Mornin'." Mara's voice was hoarse. Someone screamed last night. Clyde's eyes didn't change, did they? Mara leaned forward, anger cutting through fear. "Evan, room 9, and there was room 11. Clyde sipped his coffee, calm. "Rooms get quiet by daylight." "Are you saying it didn't happen?" Clyde set the cup down carefully. "I'm saying folks come here because they're lost, and sometimes the motel helps them stay lost." Mara's hands trembled. "That's..." Clyde interrupted, voice mild. "You made it to morning. That's the important part." Mara stared at him. "What is it? What's in the walls?" Clyde looked past her, toward the row of rooms, toward the woods behind them. His face softened just slightly, like he was remembering something. "Loneliness," he said. "Regret, the shape of things people won't stop thinking about." Mara's stomach clenched. "That's not an answer." Clyde's eyes returned to hers. "It's the only one I've got." Mara swallowed. "What happened to Evan?" Clyde held her gaze for a beat too long. Then he slid the register book across the counter and tapped a blank line near the top. "Sign out," he said. Mara stared at the blank line, the pen chained. Her hand hovered. Clyde's voice stayed calm, but something in it tightened. "Sign out, Miss Ellis, then you go." Mara's throat went dry again. She understood, suddenly, what the register was. Not a guest log. A ledger. A count. She didn't touch the pen. "I'm leaving," she said, backing away. Clyde nodded. "Good." Mara turned and hurried to her car. Her hands shook as she jammed the key into the ignition. The engine sputtered, then caught. She pulled out of the lot without looking at the row of doors, without looking at the woods. As she drove, she dared a glance in the rearview mirror. The motel was already fatting behind fog and morning glare. But for a split second, she saw something standing in the doorway of room 12. Her shape. Her face. Smiling wide. And then it raised a hand, slowly, like it was waving goodbye, or promising it would see her again. Mara's gaze snapped forward. She kept driving. She didn't stop until she hit the next town, where the gas station lights were bright and human, and the air smelled like coffee and exhaust. Only then did she look at her phone again. Full bars. A new voicemail notification. From an unknown number. Myra's stomach dropped. Her finger hovered over the notification, shaking. Then she deleted it without listening. She bought gas. She bought coffee. She sat in her car with the heater blasting and the radio turned up loud enough to drown out any knocking she might imagine. And when she finally pulled back onto the highway toward Brightwater, she told herself the motel was just a bad night, a hallucination shaped by exhaustion. But every now and then, when the road straightened and the trees thickened along the shoulders, she caught her reflection in the rearview mirror. And it seemed to lag, just a heartbeat behind.